In general, I've got quite possibly the kindest audience here on YouTube. Y'all put up with my shenanigans and my incredibly cheesy country girl millennial humor. And even more importantly, the vast majority of you enjoy my obsession with beating up land dinos. But there's one person who has been relentless in their pursuit of draining what little sanity I have left. Yes, I'm looking at you, Creature Mania. Fine. It's time, I'll do the thing. So, starting in April, because I value my mental health, I set off on a journey. It's time to play Deino again. Only different. Originally, I intended this to be done challenge style. But I know this game and how things work pretty well, and decided that for the sake of making it actually possible to survive, the rules would be pretty lax. Most of my life has to be on land. Swimming is permitted for crossing water sources and escaping danger, but I shouldn't submerge entirely if I don't have to. And any kills or grabs must be done on land, but grabbed targets may be drowned if I'm close enough to water. There are a few different Deino spawns, but Northeast Lake was the only one that I decided would be viable for growing. Plenty of things pass through or hang out around this area, so all I had to do was sneak out into the open field and scavenge corpses. As long as I wasn't spotted, I'd be perfectly fine. Easier said than done, though, especially as a fresh spawn on a timer made of dehydration. And with most of the available food being by the most populated rock in the area, well. Let's just say I was relieved when I spotted a new option much closer to the river and further away from the herd of tenos and packies that were guarding the corpses around them. When the food I found ran out, I knew I had no choice but to attempt to sneak up to the rock again. It was dark as could be and raining. The likelihood that I'd be spotted was low. With stegos and packies calling nearby, I decided my safest bet would be to grab an organ and go. The danger with carrying food, though, is that people can smell it. And I got incredibly lucky that the packy who approached either couldn't properly see me, or decided to show mercy to go beat up the nearby raptor instead. As I slowly dragged myself toward the water, I had a choice to make. Either stop for stamina and risk dehydrating, or keep walking and risk being too slow and still dehydrating. Neither option felt great, but I opted to stop just in case a little bit of stamina would be the thing that saved me. I wasn't exactly very efficient. My water was dangerously low now, and I was getting more nervous by the minute. Taking damage from dehydration and listening to the nearby stego call cancel way too many times, I finally reached the river without much life to spare. That was close. A little too close. The food I'd gained lasted me long enough that I didn't have to start searching again until midday. There were still plenty of herbivores around, but none of them were small enough for me to catch. I could do nothing more than continue to scavenge and hope for the best. Travel was incredibly slow, and with my stomach nearing dangerous levels, every second counted. Still, I paused alongside the lake for a drink on the way to my next potential morsel of food, and to watch in case one of the packies got themselves killed. Maybe I could sneak a nibble from one of the water gators. Unfortunately for me, I was spotted on my way back to the bushes. Maybe, just maybe, I was big enough I could kill a face-tanking packy? Perhaps. But not if I had broken legs and a broken back. Escape. In the event of needing to flee from something deadly, I was allowed to submerge. I didn't have time to heal my fractures before trying to eat. I needed to get to the food and heal later. But oh, how painful each movement was with so many broken bones. All I could do was drag myself onward, hoping that nothing would spot my entirely helpless baby Deino. I reached the food and was mildly disappointed at its size. It wouldn't do much, but it would keep me alive while I healed. Things were not going well, to say the least. Food was all but non-existent, and I was desperate. A couple of water dinos existed in the lake, but unless they exited the water, I couldn't hunt them. They offered to find me an elite fish, but I quickly grew impatient while waiting for them to return. I was taking damage. I couldn't keep waiting around in hopes that they'd find a fish and return. It was distant, but I could smell some kind of corpse out in the field. I needed to get to it, no matter what. Which meant getting past the adult stego guarding the area. This was really not ideal. His dogged march back and forth like a prison guard had me on edge as I approached the rock. Hopefully, he wouldn't come around the bend. Maybe he wouldn't see me. Perhaps I'd be lucky. My health was draining quickly, but I reached the food. Okay. It wasn't much, but I wasn't actively dying. I needed to get back to the water, and fast. My own water was lower than I wanted it to be. And then the Trudon spotted me, and started calling to the stego. Well, shoot. Maybe I could hide before he came back. It would be fine. He sounded quite far away now. If I was lucky, he just wouldn't return. I only needed a bit of stamina, and then I'd make a break for it. Nope. He spotted me. My health was already incredibly low from lack of food before, and now this guy had come to be my downfall. Well, never thought a Trudon would be what ended my first attempt. Alright, round 2. Racing headlong into the open field toward the scent of diets. As I got closer, it became clear that it even contained extra goodies. This would be a great start. I was thrilled. Okay, round 3. As you have probably guessed, I did not spend days upon days attempting to grow this land deino. In fact, by this point, 2 months have gone by. Especially as a fresh spawn, you take what you can get for food when you're sentenced to a life on land as a mostly aquatic ambush predator. Time passed slowly. Every meal was stretched as long as I could possibly use it. Every ounce of growth gleaned from each full stomach. Going to get food was the most danger I could face. Going out into the open meant facing the faster, more agile, and currently all much larger creatures that hear the echoes of a cry for land deino blood in my own voice. Thankfully, this rotten packy corpse was untouched and uninteresting to the pack of raptors that were wandering around the area. I was far from the water. I needed to eat quickly so that I could start the journey back before I turned into a raisin. And for a long time, that became my life. Smell food, sneak into the open to eat it, sneak back to water before I dried out like a worm after a rainstorm. Some trips were quieter than others, but each one carried some level of risk. I could smell diets this time. Those would be incredibly valuable. However, as I got closer, I spotted the packy, and then heard the young Serato friendly call. Okay. The packy and the tenos allowed the Serato to approach. He was going to eat my food. The thing I'd come all the way out here to get. I wasn't going to be able to leave. They'd catch me. I started to log out, but then I had another idea. Maybe I was big enough to kill the Serato. I could sneak up on him. But no. He saw me and didn't attack. Well, maybe if I left him some food, he'd let me go in peace. He didn't need the food, though, and he left. Okay, I just finished this other rotten corpse, and then oh no. 2 tenos and the packy stared at me. Scary. They spun, and I danced desperately in response. Okay. Time to go back to the water. The tenos walked away, but the packy followed. I couldn't be sure if he was planning my demise, or just being amused by how slow I was. The next time I looked back, he'd gone. Holy cow, they let me live. I returned to the edge of the river to hide away and sleep off my most recent meal. The next day, cheered by finally reaching my second mutation for the first time, I logged back in, only to find that the servers had been rolled back. You have got to be kidding me. At least I was gifted food nearby the river's edge this time, but I had lost probably an hour and a half's worth of growth with my terrible diets, and I was steamed. After scavenging for what felt like another eternity, I finally reached second mutation again. You don't understand how slowly time passes as a land deino. I returned to catch the scent of a nearby meal. Well, more scavenging, I suppose. That was really all I was, an incredibly slow vacuum cleaner. As I approached this meal, though, I saw pieces moving and vanishing. Something was eating it. Ah, little raptors. I ate the food quickly, then waited as the little scraps tried to beat me up. The silly things pounced each other off my side, and I was gifted dessert to go with the Serato corpse they'd been eating. Delicious. And a full belly to watch the world turn with. I was getting quite large now. Large enough, in fact, that the carno that initially spooked me into fleeing turned out to be too small to charge me. Not that it mattered at the end of the day, though. He quickly decided that I was too dangerous to be messing with, and went to get a drink elsewhere. I still needed food, though, and a rotten corpse some distance away was enticing enough that I decided to go for it. With a now full belly, I settled into a nice little cubby to continue just about existing. As I drank, though, I spotted a Serato running down the hill toward the water. Ugh, of course he was on the other side. And, well, guys, I may have cheated a little bit. Rather than allowing him to see me coming so he'd just run away, I did, in fact, ambush him. But I only grabbed him for a second, and I let go of him instantly. If I was going to fight him, it did need to be on land. I was frankly shocked at how quickly both Seratos dropped. Surely they weren't so injured when they came to get a drink that I could kill two Seratos that easily, right? Oh well, who was I to complain? This was the first actual real meal I'd had my entire growth. As I was healing and eating, their friend arrived too. He thought he was slick, and so I immediately lunged him as he went for a charge bite. Three Serato bodies for me. What a treat. With stegos moving into the field, I moved back to my cubbyhole. The serrato carcasses had been great, but now that they were gone, I'd have to be on the lookout for future meals. One such possibility was a deino that was chased into the water by serratos. Quite unfortunately, he could jump and I could not. When my attempts to get up the rock in one direction failed, I decided to go another way. But he was too large for me to lunge him still. Unfortunate. And he was decidedly uninterested in trying to beat me up. Oh well. Morning arrived and the serratos had decided to continue their attack on the stegos and deino. I waited nearby, hopeful that maybe, just maybe, one of the serratos might race by and I could snatch them. That didn't happen. What did though was the deino died. With the stego there, trying to get some of the deino was incredibly risky. He could simply decide that I should die. I decided to wait and hope that they would move away and I could scavenge what remained. And eventually they did. The herd headed out into the field and I made my way to the deino carcass. There a lone serrato stood. I could handle a lone serrato. No big deal. His insistence, however, on keeping my back to where I'd last seen the stegos was a red flag. I rushed for the bushes and the rocky edge of the waterfall nearby. I could flee directly into the water, but this was closer. I got there just in time. The serrato barely hurt, but that stego power jab wouldn't have been a mere tickle. A short while later, the stegos had moved even further away, as had the serrato. Thank goodness. I'd needed the food badly. As I ate, the serrato returned. And bit me from the 50-yard line. No, not today. I didn't know if it was latency or hacking, but I decided not to stick around to find out. Starvation was an imminent threat. So imminent, in fact, that I attempted to pretend to not only be incredibly nervous of the Carno running around, but I tried very hard to act like I didn't know what I was doing, in hopes of him gaining confidence so I could eat him. It is, however, incredibly difficult to convince a nervous Carno to hunt a nearly full-grown land deino. And so, having wasted too much time, I opted to swim to cross back to where I might be able to scavenge something. On the way there, I spotted a smaller deino taking a fish up onto land. I was desperate. I climbed up onto the rock as well, considering. Why was he so trusting? I had no real choice. Sorry, buddy. Well, I wasn't dying anymore, and I'd heard tenos somewhere downstream. Perhaps together they'd decide that they were confident enough to face me. They came down the hill, and the first one to attempt to attack got immediately grabbed. Well, that's one decent-sized snack. His buddy was pretty upset, though, and quite determined that I would not eat my meal. That's okay. I'd take it across the river. If he wanted to follow, well, that would be his funeral. He didn't, but he certainly wasn't done being angry. And so I proceeded to bother him. Eventually, he'd make a mistake. I returned to the water to get a drink. And my game crashed. Amazing. But hey, at least the Tenno didn't realize anything was amiss. And I reached full grown, so there we go. Task complete, I suppose. But I still wanted the second Tenno to make a mistake. When he finally did, my lunge decided to glitch out, and my deino kept running forward into the rocks, forcing me to drop my catch. Well, that's that. He was never going to get close again. My land deino is still out there, alive and on the verge of starvation as per usual. But she's alive and she grew up like a fish out of water. At the end of the day, that's what matters. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and comment your thoughts below. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for more content like this. Also, hey, I've got my own unofficial server now. It's currently in testing, but will be officially launching soon. Check that out in the Unofficials tab under Metta's Den. Thanks, and I hope to see you again soon.